my notes and everything. All right, we are ready. Hi everybody, welcome to Mondays with Marc. I'm Marc and we're on Smokey Steve and Marc, right? Yay! How are you? It's great to see you. I don't know, I'm beginning to think the favorite part of my Monday or any Monday is Mondays with Marc, because I get to spend some time with you. Anyway, I hope you had a great weekend, and more importantly, I hope you had a better start to your week, so we have a great positive week ahead of us, right? We have a great episode for you tonight. I was going through what we were trying to do in 2020 was try to introduce some new segments and maybe up the content a little bit of our channel, do some more lives, things like that. And so we were going through all of the viewer kind of suggestions or the viewer requests of videos, and there was so many, and there were I can't even tell you. I've had them for Mondays with Marc. I've had, do one on the money saving apps that I use, do one on the contest that I enter, like a little kind of tutorial on how to get started in doing the contest and the instant win games, more cooking videos, but by far the most requests that I have received were for baking. So I figured this would be a great time to kind of introduce a new segment on Mondays with Marc, and we are going to be baking. Now, I don't have an official title for it or anything. I'm just going to do more baking videos. Maybe we'll call it like we do on Facebook, Marc's Cookbook or something like that. I don't know. But that's what we're going to do tonight. And but first I want to also say thank you to everybody who sent us comments and emails and suggestions for our new special that's coming up. If you didn't watch yesterday's video, we asked all of our viewers for suggestions for an idea for our next special. And if you've just recently joined us, every so often we do a special, a special video. It tends to be a little bit longer, 45 minutes to an hour, and it's usually around some type of theme. So far we've done Christmas in July, we did the Very Golden Special, where it was all about the Golden Girls, and we did a Halloween special too. So we got a little stumped on what our next special should be or would be, so we asked for suggestions, and boy, you guys came through. Thank you so much. And if you haven't and you still want to, if you have any ideas of what you would like to see Steve and I do for an upcoming special episode, comment below or shoot me an email at SmokeySteveAndMarc@yahoo.com. So far we've gotten everything from Hawaiian luau's and tiki parties to decade themed specials like the 70s or the 60s, or even older, even the 20s would be fun, but I'm not putting the flapper on though. But anyway, if you have any ideas, comment below or send us an email, and we'll sort through them all and see what we're going to come up with. We'd like to do one pretty soon too. It's been a while. Actually, it's been since Halloween. I don't know. But anyway, so I just wanted to say thank you for that. Anyway, I don't really have a lot more to say. I think we should just jump right into this. So, I'm going to be doing some baking videos for y'all, some tutorials on how to bake different things. And we're going to start with sourdough bread, homemade. And that's what I did today, and that's what I'm going to show you. Now, I hope as time goes on, my hope is that these little videos become better and more easily understandable, and I hope to streamline them a little bit better. I've gotten much better. I was looking at some of the old videos from a year ago that I did. I think I made cupcakes and the video was an hour long, and it was all talking and all over the place. So I've gotten a little bit better, but my goal is to make these fun, informative, and try to simplify everything so that it's good and appropriate for the home baker. I think, especially when you're talking about bread making, I think a lot of people get intimidated about making homemade bread. Especially the home baker, I would think, or if you've never done it before. But I find it extremely fun, and I find it extremely rewarding too. So I decided to start with sourdough breads, and we're going to make a loaf of homemade sourdough bread tonight. And we're also I'm going to show you how to make a sourdough starter. Now, if you don't know what a starter is, you probably would remember Amish friendship bread. Like, I don't know, your neighbor or your mom or someone would give you this little starter, and then you would bake a loaf of Amish friendship bread from it. That's the starter that I'm talking about. We're going to make one from scratch tonight, so you can make one your own, and then we're going to make a loaf of sourdough bread. Now, this is kind of a new hobby for me because most of you know I am a baker by trade, although for most of my career I've worked as a savory chef. But baking is at my heart. I love baking, and I don't have a lot of experience with bread making. I think that happens to a lot of bakers. You know, they tend to go into the dessert arena, and then, you know, they don't do a lot of baking of bread. I love baking bread, and I chose sourdough bread because it is so fun. It's like an art, you know? I mean, it all depends on, you know, your rise time and the types of flours you use and all that. And as we go on in this series, we're going to discuss all that. We'll discuss, like, the different types of flours, and as always, I do try to keep it interesting. So if you're like, I have no interest at all in bread, I'm going to try to make it interesting for you folks, too. I always try to put in some interesting facts or, you know, little funny, you know, clips or something like that in it as well. Now, sourdough bread, I mean, has long been understood to have a lot of health benefits, too. I mean, the entire, you know, fermentation process is known to be good for a healthy tummy, right? And the long fermentation process of making sourdough bread brings out a lot of vitamins and iron and a lot of vitamins and minerals too within the bread itself. So, you know, sourdough bread overall is healthier for you, and it's easily digestible too. So we are going to start with a sourdough starter. So again, I'm totally blabbing away. Do you want to go to the kitchen? Let's go to the kitchen and let's start with our sourdough starter, okay? All right, I'm going to meet you in the kitchen. Bye. Okay, here we are in the first of our series of sourdough bread making. Now, sourdough bread making is as much as an art as it is a science, from, you know, the ingredients, from the baking times to the rise times. And if you like it as much as I do, you'll find your own unique way and you'll find your own recipe just by practicing and making all different types of breads, you know? So whether you're making a crusty loaf of bread or some pancakes or biscuits, it all starts with one thing, and that is a starter. So, what is a starter? Meet George. This is my starter. Now, George has been going for quite some time now. He was given to me by a very dear friend of mine, Louise. Louise B., if you're watching, thank you so much. He's still going real strong. And there are 3 ways, well, that is the difference between traditional bread making and sourdough bread making. Traditional bread making, you know, you always use yeast. In sourdough bread making, you use a starter to get the rise. So, there are 3 different ways that you can get a starter. One, and the most obvious, and how it all began, is from a friend. And like I said, I got mine from a friend, and I've given this away probably, I don't know, 5 times now. So, but we'll get more into that later. Another way is you can order a starter online. You can buy one, and it usually comes dried, and you just rehydrate it, and they work perfectly. They're really, really good. And then another way, you can make it yourself, and it's super, super easy. It only takes 2 ingredients, flour and water. Well, 3 ingredients if you count patience, because it does take a few days to make one, you know, to get it right and ready to go. So, I'm going to show you how you can make your very own starter from scratch, all right? So, it's very, very simple. First of all, you need a container. Now, I would use a glass or a plastic container. Steer away from anything metal. It does inhibit the growth of your fermentation process. We'll say that, but we'll get more into that later, okay? So I'm going to grab 3/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour. This is unbleached. My preference is Bob's Red Mill. I like their flours. But you could use any type. My second choice is King Arthur. I love King Arthur brand too. So 3/4 of a cup, all-purpose, unbleached flour. And then to that, you're going to need a 1/2 of a cup of lukewarm water. Okay? Put that in there. And then you want to mix it thoroughly until it's fairly smooth. Okay? So we're just going to mix that up until all the lumps are gone. And then you have to do the little singing part or else it will not work. So, okay, and we are perfect. Now there's a lot of debate how much liquid to use. A lot of recipes will say you need equal parts of water and flour, you know. I prefer this method. You'll find your own later, but if you're doing this for the first time, just follow what I'm doing. 3/4 of a cup to 1/2 a cup, okay? Now you're going to put a lid on it. You want a breathable lid, but this one, all I do is give it a little burp every once in a while, and it's perfectly fine. You could also cover your container with cheesecloth or a damp towel, whatever you want. Now, you set it aside and wait. So, I'm going to give you the rest of the instructions now, if you have a pencil ready, because it does take a few days. This is where the patience comes into play, okay? That special ingredient. Oh my Lord. So anyway, we're going to stir it up so it's nice and smooth, cover it, set it aside for 24 hours. Usually I put it on top of my refrigerator. Just room temperature is fine. If your house is really, really cool, you're probably going to want to wait a little longer than a day. So give it, you know, a day plus 12 hours if your house is really cool. But regular room temperature, 1 day is fine, okay? So then, on the second day, you're going to open them up, give him a stir, and you're going to feed him again. Yep, that's what we call it. We feed our starter every day. And you're going to do the same exact thing. 3/4 of a cup of flour, a 1/2 a cup of lukewarm water, stir it, cover it, set him aside again. Now you're going to repeat that for the next 5 to 7 days. Now on the third day, you're going to want to start to dispose some of your starter. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I hate throwing this away, da 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 da. That would be a perfect opportunity to give your starter to a friend. But for now, beginning with the third day, dispose some of your starter. And I'm going to say, take about a cup or so out. You just want to get rid of some of it so it doesn't bulk up too much. So for simplicity, let's do 3/4 of a cup, dispose, and then feed him again. Now, you're going to do that for 7 days. On the 7th day, he's all ready to go, and you can use your favorite sourdough recipe to use them. Now, I'm going to tell you, when we start baking the bread, I'll explain what it means when your starter is ripe or not. Now that you have your starter, pretend like it's 7 days later. You have your starter, it's all ready to go. You can now keep him in the refrigerator. It depends on how much you like to bake. Now, I keep mine at room temperature all week. I usually only bake once a week, so it's fine to keep them out. If you want them to go dormant a little bit, pop them in the fridge, and then when you're ready to bake, pop them out and feed them again and let it sit for a little bit and you're ready to go. All right? So that's how you make a homemade starter. All right? So we'll put him aside. Now I have 2 starters going, so I wonder who I'm going to give that one to. Gee, I don't know. So on to making a sourdough loaf of bread. So this is our very, very first recipe, and I tested a ton of recipes out, and I wanted to keep them very simple and perfect for the home baker and not too complicated. Sourdough bread is notorious for having, we'll say, a lot of fails at first when you're first starting out. My first sourdough bread, I tell you what, if I made 100 of them, I could have made a wall out of them. They were like a brick, let me tell you. So don't get discouraged if your first loaf turns out bad. It's all about practice and getting the kind of feel to making sourdough bread. But this recipe that I'm going to share with you is a very basic sourdough bread recipe that we will make in a loaf pan. So it'll be perfect for sandwiches, perfect for French bread or French toast, all kinds of stuff like that. It'll have a nice crusty crust on it, and it'll be nice and soft and tangy in the middle. And there's a few fail-safes in this recipe too to help it out, okay? For example, we will be using some instant yeast in this recipe. Traditionally, sourdough breads would not use yeast, but since this is our very first one, we're going to add yeast to it just to kind of give us, set us up for success, let's say that. Now, as we go along in this series, we're going to explore all different types of recipes, from Amish friendship bread. Have you ever heard of that? It's delicious. Traditional sourdough bread with no yeast. We'll do some, maybe some whole grain sourdough breads. And if you have any suggestions or anything you would like to see, comment below and we'll do it. We'll take care of it here. So let's get on with this recipe. We're going to make a basic sourdough bread in a loaf pan, okay? So the first thing you want to do is get your ingredients together. Here, I'll run down the ingredients so you can write it down if you'd like. As always, I'll post this on Facebook so you can print it to make it a little bit easier. You will need 1½ teaspoons of instant yeast, 1½ teaspoons of salt, 1½ teaspoons of sugar, 2½ cups of all-purpose flour. I prefer the unbleached Bob's. I like Bob's. You'll need 2 cups of your starter and ½ cup of lukewarm water. Super simple recipe. Everybody seems to get a little nervous about homemade bread making. It's really not that difficult. Like I said, it's as much as an art as it is a science. So, first thing we're going to do is place all of our ingredients in a stand mixer. Now, if you don't have a stand mixer, you can do this by hand, and you can also do this in a bread machine too, and I'll show you why. So, we're going to add our flour, like that. All of our dry ingredients, our sugar, our salt, and our instant yeast. Now, a note about instant yeast. I think this is the best brand on the market. This is my personal opinion. It's Red Star, and it's the Platinum instant yeast. I've never had a fail using this yeast. I do like it. So that's just a little recommendation for you, okay? So now that that's in, we can add the rest of our ingredients. Let's get our starter. Now, we need 2 cups of ripe starter. Now, what's ripe starter? This is ripe starter. You can see all the bubbles. You can smell the yeast. It's fantastic. So, to get your starter ready to bake, about an hour or 2 before you want to bake, you want to feed your starter like we talked about before. So, feed your starter and then place him in a warm place. Perfect place inside your oven with the light turned on. Let them sit in there for an hour or 2 until you see some bubbles forming. Perfect, perfect, ready to go. This is so perfect. I'm just drooling. This is perfect. So we need 2 cups. So I've done this so many times. You measure it out, but I'm just going to do it over it like this. So we got 1, like that. Pour them in there. And 2. There we go. And I have a lot left for my next loaf of bread. So we'll set him aside, cover him up. And what I'm going to do with him now is I'm going to feed George again, cover him up, and set him aside for next week. So, yeah, that's George. He's getting all messed up like my hands here. Okay, so everything's in. We're going to add 1/2 cup of lukewarm water. Okay, add that in there. 1 bowl, you can't get any more simpler than this. Turn them on. Like that. There we go. And you're going to mix that. Now, through a stand mixer, you're going to want to do 7 to 8 minutes. By hand, you're going to want to do a little more, like 10 minutes. And in a bread machine, you're going to let it stir up for about 20 minutes, okay? So I'm not going to bore you for the next 8 minutes. I'll see you in 8 minutes once it's all ready, okay? Bye. Nice. Okay, so we're in our last minute of mixing of our dough, but I have an interesting fact for you concerning our starters. Do you know how old the oldest starter is out there? Now, Guinness Book of World Records, you know, they track everything, but they don't track the oldest starter in history. So, they did kind of a poll or a test a few years back, and it's known that Lucille Clark of Newcastle has the oldest starter in history. Her starter is 122 years old. of continuous feeding and using, 122 years. She got it from her mom, who got it from one of her husband's students at the University of Wyoming. The student's family could trace it all the way back to 1889. That starter has seen 2 world wars, the invention of the phone. I mean, it just, like, what, 23, 24 U.S. presidents? That's crazy. I bet you that's a good starter. Anyway, back to our dough. So it's been 7 minutes, and here, I'll turn it back on so you can see what it looks like. That's perfect. That's exactly what you want, all right? So now we're going to take it out. We're going to take it out, and you're going to get a bowl ready simply by greasing it, giving it a spray. Just like that, just so it doesn't stick. And we're going to turn our dough into the bowl. Now, you'll notice that this bread is a little more wet than traditional bread dough, and that's what you want. It's perfect, all right? Nothing more to it. Pop it in there like that, and we're going to set it aside. Cover it maybe with a wet towel. I don't have one ready. I'm going to go get that now. Cover it with a wet towel. Set it aside for 1 hour. I'll see you in an hour. Bye. Okay, and we're back, and it's been an hour. George has been fed, and he's set aside for his next baking adventure. And we're going to go check on our dough. As I said, I kept it in the oven with just the light on. I'm sure it's ready to go. And it is. All right. So it has risen just to the point where we want it to. Now in traditional bed baking. There we go. Bread baking.
The rain in Spain.
Say that 3 or 4 times fast. It's really hard. Anyway, so in traditional bread baking, you would want the first rise to at least double in size. Not so much with sourdough bread. This is absolutely perfect, okay? So next what we're going to do is get a work surface, lightly spray it. You can use a cutting board or your counter or even a piece of parchment paper. It doesn't really matter. And we're going to turn it out like so. And we're going to gently push it down and just give it a knead or 2. Doesn't have to be forceful, and you don't have to knead it for hours like other bread. Not hours, but you know what I mean. All right, so the bread is kneaded, and now we're going to form it into about a 9-inch log. Okay, because this recipe we're going to make in a 9x5 loaf pan. Seems about right there. Now this is my baby. This is my loaf pan. I use this. I have loaf pans that I just use for baking only. Don't use it for anything else. I tend not to scrub it out because I do like it to be seasoned a little bit. But I bought a brand new pan that I'm anxious to try today. So we're gonna make it in this. It is a 9x5, and this is a 9x5. I have no idea. Loaf pans are, notoriously wrong in their measurements. Like this one says 9x5, this one says 9x5. I don't know. But anyway, so I'm going to try it in this one. This will give us a little bit of a wider loaf, so we'll see how that works. So your loaf pan, you want to make sure that you spray it. And a little bit of a note about spraying. When I bake, I tend to use a spray that's made for baking. Mm-hmm. And it's up to you. Regular pan will work, but they have butter flavor, they have flour right in the spray, they have all different types. But if you get one that's specifically for baking, I think you have better results. Just my opinion. So you want to make it as even as possible, so we don't have like one side higher than the other. All right. And this looks pretty good. All right. So we're going to set that in there. Like so. Set them in there like that. I'm afraid this side's a little bit... There we go. Much better. Okay. Again, we're going to cover with our damp towel. This is the one, right? Yeah. Cover with our damp towel. Set it aside. And let it rise 1 more hour. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right, we'll see you in an hour. We're back. Excuse me, I'm just burping George here.
Oh, George.
Okay. Okay, so it has been an hour, and we're about to check on the rise of our dough. A little note about rising, too. As a rule of thumb for sourdough breads, the longer the rise, the more tangy the bread will be. As we move along in this series and we do like a traditional sourdough loaf, you'll see that we're going to let it rise overnight. Some of them have you having it rise for 24 hours. You know, it all depends on your starter and how long you want it to rise and how you want it to taste. Now, it doesn't really come into play for this one. As you know, we started with just a basic beginner sourdough bread. So we did 2 rises, 2 1-hour rises for this one. So I'm going to pull it out of the oven. As always, I put it in there with just the light on. And we're going to see what it looks like. Okay.
That dish towel's seen some life.
This is my baking dish towel. Perfect. Okay. It's all up, nice, ready to go. It's about 1 inch over the edge. Now, this is my new pan, and you know, we talked about I bought a new pan.
Yeah.
Now, had I used the other pan, which is right here, I put it away. Had I used the other pan, this would have filled out, and it would have been definitely 1 inch all the way around. But I wanted to try a new one, so it will rise a little bit too when you bake it. So you want to preheat your oven to 350. And we're going to put this in the oven for 40 to 50 minutes, okay? You want it to be nice and golden brown on top. And if you have an internal thermometer, the thermometer should read 190, okay? So we're going to pop this baby in the oven for about 45 minutes, and I'll check back with you then, all right? Bye. Okay, so it's been exactly 45 minutes. Let's see what we have. All right. Oh, looks golden. All right, let's see. So when you take the bread out of the oven, you don't want to let it sit in the pan too long, okay? So we're going to take it out of the pan. Just flip it over. Ooh, nice and golden brown. Ooh, like that. Ooh, it smells good. And we're going to flip it over. And now for an added little touch, take the spray that you use to spray your pan with and spray the bread with it. And that'll make it nice and shiny and artisan looking, you know? Mm-hmm. So now you don't want to cut into it until it cools down a little bit. If you cut into it when it's too hot, it's just going to be a crumbled mess. Just trust me on that one. So as you can see, it's long. It looks more like a artisan sourdough bread. If you wanted it to look a little bit more like a regular loaf of bread, you know, like the kind that has the mushroom top like this, you know what I mean? Then I would recommend using a loaf pan like this rather than one that's like, how do I explain it? Like this one is the same at the top as it is at the bottom. This one is smaller at the bottom and it widens out a little bit at the top. So it kind of compacts it in a little bit more. So, but this is kind of what I wanted. So let's see what it tastes like. So we're going to let this cool and then we're going to slice into this baby, okay? All right. Okay, so it's been an hour. It's nice and cool. And yes, I know, I just got out of the shower. I thought I'd take a shower while it was cooling so you get to see me with flat hair. Goodness.
Let's get
a
close up of that hair.
No, close up of the bread. So anyway, let's slice into this baby and see what we have. Nice crust. Nice. Very nice.
Looks like a nice crumb.
Yep, it is. Let's see how dense it is. Let's slice here. So this would be great for French toast. This would be great for sandwiches, or Steven's favorite, a grilled cheddar cheese sandwich.
Yes, on sourdough.
Yeah. Smells delicious.
Does it?
Yes, it does. Looks really good. I think maybe a little dense, but I'm pretty pleased with it. So anyway,
I can't try
like
it.
I said, if you want to have this is more like an artisan loaf. If you want to have yours look more like a regular loaf with like the top, I would suggest using a smaller loaf pan. But I'm happy I tried out my new loaf pan. And maybe I'll keep it. I don't know. We'll see. Next time, though, I'm going to make it in that one and see how it turns out. So what are we going to make next? I guess we'll see next time. For now, I'm going to go tear into this. He's going to too. He's jealous. He wants to have it. So we'll let you know how it is, all right? Thanks for watching, and remember, stay tuned because we're going to do some more recipes all about sourdough bread, all right? Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Hey. So wasn't that fun? That was fun.
I didn't have to be here for any of it. All I get is the bread.
Yes.
All I get is
You
bread.
have to do the taste test.
Oh, for shame.
Yes. So one of the best ways I think ever of eating sourdough bread is with a little bit of dip. And what it is all it is olive oil, and I ground up a little bit of Tuscan seasoning into it, or you could use Italian seasoning, or really you could just do salt and pepper in it. It's very, very delicious. So
that's a nice crumb right there.
It's a nice crumb. It's very, very
chewy. It was crispy out of the oven. It's nice and chewy now.
Good. I want to taste.
Mm.
Well, I shouldn't do this, but oh well, why not?
Why not?
Well, because I need to talk, but I just need it. It's good. It's very good. So,
you know, Oprah eats bread every day.
She does.
Wellness Works or whatever they call that now.
So, that was our very first baking tutorial. Oh, first new one, I guess we'll say. And, gosh, what are we going to do next? I'm super excited. I mean, we're going to make, there's so many different ways to make bread, too, not just sourdough bread. You could use, well, like you said, you could use honey instead of sugar to feed the yeast. You could, I mean, there's so many different ways. We can add whole grains to it. We'll make a wheat, maybe we'll make a honey wheat. Anyway, we'll figure all that out later. And I won't skip out on the pastries either.
I'm saying your bread's wonderful, but I have a sweet tooth.
Yes,
a little bit.
I know. We'll do cupcakes and cakes and stuff like that too, definitely. So I'm real excited about this new segment. I am. So anyway, I did tell you that it was like the most. Well, yeah, it was the most requested of everything that was mentioned to us. Was the baking to do a baking segment.
Well, thank you everybody.
I know.
I'm eating well.
Yeah, you get to be my taste tester for everything.
Oh damn.
And work too. Like every time I make something, like if it's a craft or something, I always take it into work. Here, I don't know what to do with it. It's just you and I. So if I make like a dozen cupcakes, what are we gonna do with it? But anyway, so I had a ton of fun. I hope you did too, and I hope you try this recipe. If you do, send us a picture. Let me know how your loaf turned out, right? And I hope it might have sparked something in you, especially with the starter. Like, you can make your own starter and then give it to friends and stuff. I just love the whole concept of the starter. So we'll have to make friendship bread. We'll do that. And so, yeah, I guess that's it for today.
That's it?
Yeah.
Great. Well, I call that a high note.
The whole house smells like bread.
Yeasty, fresh.
It does.
Well, thank you all for watching. Please do subscribe. Hit the like button. You can follow us all on Facebook at SmokeySteveAndMarc or on Instagram at SmokeySteveAndMarc. Our email address and contact info is all listed below. Thank you all for watching, and we'll catch up with y'all tomorrow.
Yeah. Here, I know you have to get up.
I know. Intermittent fasting. I'll finish it in 4 hours.
Yes, it was fantastic spending time with you, and thank you for spending time with me. I had a wonderful time. So anyway, remember everybody, stay positive, and I'll see you next time, all right? Ciao!